Hello, and welcome to week 2 of Inferno Friday. This is Archon speaking. Last week, me and Dreadnought shared with you the 5 things you want to know before playing Diablo 3. If you haven't seen that video yet, I recommend watching it. It's on both me and Dreadnought's channel. This week, I've been reading up on the forums and playing around with this skill calculator, and I'd like to share with you some of the wizard builds I've found, as well as some theory crafting on what you want to look for when creating a build. So first of all, there are plenty of good builds out there. There are even more bad ones, but there's no best build in Diablo 3. It's really specific to you, your playstyle, and your situation. There might be some exploits out there, and there could be temporary best builds, but of course it's going to get fixed, and it's going to come down to preference and situation. So from what I can tell, there are 3 things you're going to want to keep in mind when creating your build. The first one is, what type of playing will you be doing? You might be playing in a group mostly, you might be playing solo, you might be playing on lower difficulties, and then later when you're a higher level on higher difficulties. And all these things will determine what skills you want. So that's the first thing you're going to want to think about before you start playing around with builds. What is this going to be used for? So I'll give you some examples of skills that are good for different playstyles. In passive skills, one of the skills is called Glass Cannon. This one is an awesome one. If you're playing on a low difficulty and you're not afraid of dying, put this in your build. Like, hands down, 15% increase to all damage is just awesome. If you're dying, don't put this in there. But for most of you, on normal difficulty, anytime it's easy, you can rush through it, get this one. Another good example, Power Hungry is great for groups. You get 30 arcane power anytime you're healed by a health globe, which happens all the time in groups. So put that in there if you're playing with a group. Some other examples, Blur is a great one if you're getting hit a lot. It's probably going to be more useful in Nightmare, Hell, and maybe Inferno, and especially useful for solo players because you don't have someone there to tank for you. So Blur is a great one, and there's some other good ones. You can kind of look through them. The second thing you're going to want to think about before you start looking at your build is skills that work well together, or skills that kind of buff each other. I'll give you some example of those as well. Arcane Torrent has an awesome rune called Disruption. You get it at 18, and it causes enemies hit by Arcane Torrent to cause 15% additional damage from all other arcane spells. So this is a great one if you're going to put other arcane spells in your build. Actually, I have one build with this. I'll show you in a little bit. Some other kind of obvious ones in the passive skills. You have Cold-Blooded. It does an additional 20% to frozen targets or chilled, and Conflagration, or however you say that, does an extra 10% damage to enemies that have been hit by fire in the last 3 seconds. So this is a great one if you have fire spells, and Cold-Blooded is a great one if you have frost spells. Probably my favorite combination I've seen so far, though, is with Frost Nova, and it has a rune. It's called Deep Freeze, and it causes if your Frost Nova hits at least 5 targets, you gain 15% bonus to critical strike chance for 12 seconds. That's a huge bonus for a long time, and I'll show you why it can be so helpful. If you look at Electrocute, it has a rune called Forked Lightning. There you are. Critical hits release 4 charged bolts in random direction, dealing 46% weapon damage as lightning. This is awesome. You're already getting the 15% bonus from Frost Nova, and now you're just hitting a ton of targets with your AoE. And to top it all off, you get the passive skill, Critical Mass, which makes it so your critical strikes have a chance to reduce all your cooldowns by 1 second. So at this point, you're getting massive crits from your Electrocute. All your cooldowns are going down. So this is a great one to have in combination with some high cooldown skills. And the third thing that you're going to look for when creating your build is to make sure you're not using too much or too little arcane power. You want to make sure you're not topped off all the time, but you want to make sure you're not running out of arcane power as well. So if you're going to have high costing spells in there like Meteor, Blizzard, or Arcane Orb, then you're also going to want some signature moves. These are your primary skills that cost no arcane power, Or you might also want some passive skills like Power Hungry or Astral Presence that will give you some more arcane power and make up for those high intensity spells. On the other hand, if you have too many signature skills, or just skills that cost a low amount of arcane power, then you might also want to throw in one or two skills that are going to use up your arcane power like Meteor, so you're really taking full advantage of your arcane power. So those are the three things you're going to want to look for. Now I'd like to show you just a few builds I've been playing around with. These are leveling builds. The first one is a level 20 AoE build. I built this because I plan to level with Dreadnought, and he's going to be rushing in and taking most of the damage, so I can stand back and just shoot big exploding things. So in this build, the main focus is around Arcane Torrent's Disruption Rune, which I talked about earlier, gives 15% additional damage to arcane spells. Arcane Orb would then be the main damage source, with Obliteration Rune doing 228% weapon damage as arcane. And then Magic Missile is here as a signature spell for when I'm out of arcane power. I can use this. I have the Split Rune in there now, fires 3 missiles that each deal 50%. But the Charge Blast looks like it could be more worth it. It's dealing 143%, which is less than 3 times 50, but a lot of times Split isn't going to hit all 3 targets. So I'll kind of play around with it and decide which of the 2 I want. So those are my 3 damage abilities. Diamond Skin just seems like an awesome skill. Absorbs 10,000 damage, and with the Prism Rune, decreases all spells cost by 7 arcane power. Which is great because this Arcane Orb is so expensive already. And you can use it a lot. It last 6 seconds, and you can use it every 15 seconds. Awesome skill. And then Slow Time and Wave of Force are both just defensive. So when enemies finally do get to me, I can throw up Slow Time, which will slow down enemies as well as their projectiles. And then Wave of Force will knock back those enemies and will also knock their projectiles back towards them. And the Impactful Wave Rune will knock them back even further and stun them for 2 seconds. So this just seemed like a nice build for me. In my passive skills, you can see I have Power Hungry. Like I said, this is great for groups. And Glass Cannon. This is a level 20 build, so I don't anticipate dying very much on normal mode. And like I said, Glass Cannon is just a must-have if you're not dying. So that's my level 20 build for leveling with Dreadnought. I'll show you one more. It's my level 40 AoE build. This is one I just made for fun. And it's kind of all based around this teleport skill with the Reversal Rune, which allows you to teleport somewhere, and then as long as you use teleport again within 8 seconds, you can teleport right back to your original location. So the idea is to throw on Arcane Orb with Arcane Orbit, which will cause 4 Arcane Orbs to orbit me, dealing 70% weapon damage if someone comes close. Dreadnought would then rush into the fight, use War Stomp with some rune, I can't remember what it's called, to bring all the enemies towards him. I'll teleport in, hit them with the Arcane Orb, throw down a Frost Nova with the Shatter Rune, which gives it a 50% chance of releasing another Frost Nova when someone's killed. Then I'll pop back out with the Reversal, use Blizzard with the Grasping Chill, which will slow down the enemies as well as do a lot of damage. And then, if I have Arcane Power, I'll finish off some of the weaker enemies with Disintegrate, and the Volatility Rune will give a 35% chance of causing them to explode for almost 400% weapon damage to all enemies in 8 yards. And if I'm out of Arcane Power, I can use Shock Pulse. It has a similar effect of causing enemies to explode for 70 weapon damage to all enemies within 10 yards. So I'm not sure how well this will work. It seems a little unstable, but I also just thought it had a lot of high potential, being able to go in there, get out, and just blow stuff up. And then I have the same 2 passive skills, Power Hungry and Glass Cannon, and I added on Cold Blooded because enemies will be chilled or frozen most of the time with Frost Nova and Blizzard, so we might as well get that extra 20% damage on there. So those are the 2 main skills I was playing around with, or builds rather. I'm sure they're going to change a lot as we level. We're going to find all kinds of new stuff, but this was just kind of a guideline. I really encourage you guys to go out there and play around with the skill calculator if you haven't already yet. Keep those 3 things in mind that I shared. Our next video may not be next Friday. In fact, it probably won't. We're going to start grinding up to level 60 as soon as the game comes out because we really want to get there fast and start sharing those Inferno strategies with you guys. So our next video won't be released until we hit level 60. So you guys are going to know as soon as we hit it because we're going to send out a video ASAP. And as long as you're a subscriber, then you're going to get an email or you'll see it on your subscribe list and you can watch it right away. If you're not a subscriber yet, please subscribe. If you're planning on playing a wizard, subscribe to my channel. If you're thinking about playing a barbarian, you can go to Dreadnought's channel. There's a link in the description and subscribe to his. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you got a little bit of information out of it. We're super excited for Diablo 3 to come out, as I'm sure you guys are, and stay tuned for our next video. Thanks for watching.